of years.
This popped up with the change in times. Okay? We've always had, our show has always been aired on Tuesdays and Thursdays consistently at 2 o'clock and 5:30, which were great airing times. People were not having their dinner, you know, and mostly who's watching our programs are the senior citizens. I know because I talk to a lot of people. And I hear from other people who talk to senior citizens that they're the main ones watching this show. Okay? Well, I didn't get any explanation as to why these times. First of all, we used to have 4 airings.
Tuesdays
and Thursdays twice a day.
Each, yes.
All of a sudden, we were limited to one day, Tuesday at 2 p.m., the other day is at supper time, 6 o'clock on Thursday, and Fridays at 9 p.m. Those 2 shows, the 6 p.m. and the 9 p.m. are probably not watched hardly at all. And I think I know why it was pushed to those times. That's troubling.
Why do you think it was pushed to those times?
So it wouldn't get watched,
Okay.
of course.
Of course.
To limit the viewership. Now, I wrote a letter to the city, to the administrator and to Greg Zilka, to Jill Moore and to Leif Hansen. And it says, and this was on January 14th, I'm wondering why Mark Sloop has published incorrect information about free speech on Great River TV. Both of these signs, this one, which says Free Speech Friday, and this one, freedom of speech is not a license to abuse. It's a responsibility. Those started to be appearing on the character generator at some point prior to January 14th when I wrote this letter. Both of these signs attached at bottom were published on Public Access TV at 2 p.m. on Friday, January 13th, 2017, directly following the airing of Teresa and my new Church and State show. Free speech is not just on Fridays, it applies every day of the week. In the article below, you will see that Judge Douglas, writing for the majority of the Supreme Court, reversed Terminiello's conviction, holding that his speech was protected by the First Amendment. Douglas explained, in part, that the purpose of free speech was to invite dispute, even when it incites people to anger. In fact, the provocative and inflammatory speech could potentially be seen as positive. That's a Supreme Court decision. Indeed, this is one of the most important free speech cases in history. Just as a suggestion, Mark should use spell check. License is spelled incorrectly. License on the sign is spelled L-I-C-E-N-C-E instead of S-E.
Oh, yeah, it should be SE.
The character generator announcement listing this newest show is not running yet, even though I requested that back in December. Why not? Mark has had time to produce an interactive advertisement for Great River Arts and numerous others, but not... Oh, sorry, he says he didn't do that. That was maybe Heather that created that. It wasn't somebody else, evidently. I don't know who else is working for the studio. But Church and State is going to be a regular show just like Can We Talk, to discuss issues of concern in all areas of religion and its connection to the state. I emailed him to ask this, and he has yet to respond. Thank you for your prompt response. No one has responded to me about that. Our viewers for that show have only been able to see it twice. It's never been advertised in the character generator. People would have no idea when to tune into that show.
They would just have to be lucky.
They'd have to watch the character generator that very day. So in other words, they can't plan to watch a show that we are... If we're going to have that regular show, Mark told us we have to come in once a month to film. And we've been doing that. Now, that's not true for the Shops of Little Falls. I bet you they haven't been told they have to come in every month to film, and yet their show was aired 11 times since it was filmed. Okay? Mark responded back to me and when I asked him about the Free Speech Friday thing, and he says, Robin, this is an idea that I came up with and I'm going to try it out for a while. It might work or it might not work. But as the station manager, ultimately it's my decision to do what I think is best as far as programming. I want the station to grow and improve, and this is my approach. This does not affect you or any of the programs that you submit, but thank you for your comments. But it does affect us that our show is not being aired as often as other shows that, to me, are nothing about free speech. They're just advertisement for business people, those individual artists. I'm just troubled by all that. Here is the majority opinion of Terminiello v. Chicago,
one that
one of
you
the
just
most
read.
important ones. I put up a blog about this. Free speech as defined by Mark Sloop, Great River TV station manager. And I say the same thing as what I just told you on here. Okay? In response to that, when here's what John Rademacher, the conversation about charter not provide, or the city not providing that complaint line. Here's what Rademacher writes back to me. This is the response that I received from charter regarding the consumer complaint, and he lists the numbers of Spectrum TV to call for the complaint.
Okay.
And I said, my response to him was, John, it appears you are not understanding the law. It is the responsibility of the city to have in place an organization to take these complaints. The Minnesota statute is very clear on this. My questions to you are, why doesn't the city have this in place? And why did you ask Charter Spectrum for this information when they're not responsible for this? You are. No response from my city administrator on that either. Now, there's another blog that I put up. People might want to look at this. We aren't probably going to get time to go into all this. Little Falls Cable Board, no quorum, 123, and Great River TV violate their own policies and procedures, allow advertisements. So if you want to read everything I have up on there, you can go to my blog and read that. Again, robinhensel.blogspot.com. Now, when I was running for office this year against Raquel Lundberg, I noticed something really interesting.
And Lauren Boyan, by the way.
I was running against him too.
Yeah.
And he never showed up for the public forum because he didn't think he had to, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
These are the airing times for when Kathy Van Risingham, the former mayor, challenged Jerry Nafla. Their public forum where they debated, not debated, but they talked, discussed, were aired at Tuesday at 3 p.m., Wednesday at 4 p.m., Thursday at 7 p.m., Friday at 9 p.m., Saturday at 6 p.m. Okay? Ron Krisha against Dustin Simmons, Tuesday at noon, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, Thursday at 9 p.m., Friday at 5:30 p.m., and Saturday at 8 p.m. Okay? Paul Gazelka and Jason Wienerman, Tuesday at 1 p.m., Wednesday at 3 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., Friday at 6:30 p.m., and Saturday at 7 p.m. Guess what the times are when I debated Raquel Lundberg? Tuesday at 5 p.m., Wednesday at 5 p.m., Thursday at 6 p.m., supper time, when nobody'd be watching, Friday at 9 p.m., and we're the only ones that got positioned for a 10 p.m. slot on a Saturday. That's not acceptable. That's not fair in my
No,
opinion.
it's not fair.
So what I'm suggesting, folks, is all this is adding up to some, what I consider some problems going forward. And I want to suggest, now I find
Now you find the thing you were looking for.
now I
before?
find the thing about the thing about the city of St. Cloud accuses charter of violating the agreement. Let me finish my statement before I go any further. I expect in the future to be treated with fairness, and I am going to hold this studio accountable for when I want to come in here with you interviewing me about my artwork, and I'm going to bring my artwork right in here, and I'm going to list the prices on my artwork. I expect to be accommodated and filmed and do a feature story on me as a local artist holding a valid sales tax number, and do just as good as he's going to film us, just like he did these other artisans. That's coming up yet, so we'll plan on that in the future. This is the article, City of St. Cloud accuses charter of violating agreement. This was in the St. Cloud paper. It's dated September 4th of 2014. That was before their agreement was finalized in May of 2015, a year later. Charter Communications has violated its franchise agreement with St. Cloud by changing government access channels without approval, according to the city. In July, the City Council approved a 60-day extension to the agreement, while terms could be worked out on a longer agreement. If the company fails to comply, the city will move forward with enforcement procedures outlined in the franchise agreement. You get to fine them like $250. Oh yeah, here it says, Charter could be fined $250 for each day it's in violation of the agreement. We could do that same thing. We could do that here.
Okay, we could. Well, whom do we fine? Is Charter the responsible agency, or is it the city?
They are bound by law to have an agreement with our city.
So they should be.
They're, according to the city
Nagging the
officials
city to
here,
get it, yeah.
they're the ones holding it up.
Okay.
Unless I'm not getting the story straight. That's what I've heard at all these review board meetings. On August 26th, Charter changed channel numbers for the public, education and government, or PEG channels. Charter did not have written consent from the city to change the channels. The franchise agreement requires the company to have that consent according to the city. The city said it would discuss changing the channel numbers as part of the larger conversation about the franchise agreement renewal. The city reminded Charter of that decision in June. Delinquent franchise and PEG fees and other negotiation topics. On August 18th, city and Charter representatives met and discussed the changing channel numbers, delinquent franchise and PEG fees, and other negotiation topics. The groups were unable to reach an agreement according to the city. Charter Communications, at this time, owed the city of St. Cloud $20,000 in fees. On August 26th, the public access channel was moved from Channel 12 to Channel 180, and then gives some more channels they moved to. Franchise fees are a significant revenue source for the city. Get this. In 2011, the city received almost $735,000 in franchise fees and more than $140,000 in public, educational, and government access fees. Now, this is going to shock you. Well, then not this. Charter pays the city 5% of its gross revenues. The city also receives 75 cents per subscriber per month for PEG access fees. But this is going to blow your mind. When I talked to Greg, I believe his last name is Ingholm, the city clerk for St. Cloud, he and Joe Nathan, who is the television manager down there, they don't even have a station. They don't have a studio like this.
They don't have a studio?
They record in a little corner somewhere at City Hall.
Wow.
Little tiny corner. And they're getting almost $800,000 to run that channel. That seems really odd to me.
It does to me too.
Really odd to me. Okay, and then this is about broadcasting and recording of meetings. It says the Attorney General has advised that the public may tape record a meeting if it will not have significantly adverse effect on the order of the meeting or impinge on constitutionally protected rights. Neither the public body nor any council member may prohibit dissemination or broadcast of the tape. And there's a case history here that I saved for some reason. It's so long ago since I researched this, I can't remember why I saved it. City Council Open Meeting Law, Tape Recordings Permissibility. And it's a case from 1972 in Owatonna. And it's signed by Warren Spanis, the Attorney General. Well, I won't go into that at this time. About how many minutes do we have left?
13?
Okay, well, then, since we have a little extra time, we're going to move on to a little more of this BDS. Ron Krisha is our local representative here. And he introduced yesterday, the 7th of February, at the House meeting in the basement of one of the Capitol buildings of the cities, this HF 400. And what it is an anti-BDS bill. And I probably should read it. While I'm looking for this online here, would you just read this letter? I sent a letter to Ron Krisha this morning, inviting him to come on our show. If you go ahead and read that, Teresa.
Certainly. Let's see. Good morning. I, along with Teresa Scorsett, have recently developed a much-needed, brand-new local access public TV show called Church and State. at the Great River TV studio in Little Falls. Your introduction yesterday of HF 400 anti-BDS bill warrants discussing on the program. We would like to invite you to film a 1-hour show with us between 1 and 3 p.m. on any of the dates as follows: Wednesday, March 8th, Wednesday, March 15th, or Wednesday, March 22nd at the Great River TV studio in the back of the Great River Arts Building. We've reserved the studio on all of these dates. It may be possible to conference call with you so you could film even if you had to be in the metro. I have a cell phone that would allow this. We are all interested in this issue but have different viewpoints, and it would make for a very interesting and informative show. This show reaches more than 2,000 Little Fallsians, constituents of yours, who subscribe to Spectrum TV. Thank you for considering Robin Hensel, and she gives her phone number so he can respond. This is interesting. Let me just take a moment to decipher this HV 400 anti-BDS bill.
HF.
Thank you.
Yeah.
HF 400 anti-BDS bill. This is boycott. Oh, what is it? Boycott.
Boycott, divest, and sanctions.
Divest and sanctions. It's an organization that allows people to come together to boycott and divest themselves of interests in Israel because of their human rights violations.
No, if you could just read the highlighted parts there. I asked to have my statement entered into the public record for that meeting because I couldn't attend yesterday because I obviously have a cold. So go ahead and read that.
As a constituent of Ron Kresha, well, let me back up just a little. Please enter my statement into the public record for the Tuesday, February 7th, 2017 meeting at 10:15 a.m. where Ron Kresha will introduce HF 400. As a constituent of Ron Kresha, I strongly oppose HF 400. I am unwilling to surrender 1 minute of my free speech to our legislature. This bill would make it illegal to criticize or boycott Israeli crimes against innocent Palestinians. The proposed legislation blatantly violates the Constitution. Representative Kresha and all of the other elected leaders swore an oath to the Minnesota and U.S. Constitution. Both are bedrocks of democracy. I insist that he and all others who took those oaths honor them. Abolish this bill.
Here's what the bill states. No boycott of Israel. A contract for goods or services must require the vendor to certify that the vendor is not currently engaged in and agrees for the duration of the contract not to engage in a boycott of Israel. This section applies to the Minnesota State colleges and universities and to contracts entered into by entities in the legislative branch. This section does not apply to contracts with a value of less than $1,000. For the purposes of this section, boycott of Israel means engaging in refusals to deal, terminating business activities, or other actions that are intended to limit commercial relations with Israel, or persons or entities doing business in Israel, or in Israeli-controlled territories, which such actions are taken. In compliance or adherence to calls for a boycott of Israel, other than those boycotts to which the United States Code Appendix Title 50, Section 2407C applies, or in a manner that in any way discriminates on the basis of nationality or national origin and is not based on a valid business reason. And it's effective July 1st of 2017 if it's passed. I doubt it will. Let's hope it won't. And I'll tell you why. This is up on my blog. I put it up today. People can actually listen to the testimonies, the 30 minutes of testimony of people that opposed this. And in those people that spoke were a number of Jewish people who were against this because they are actively boycotting Israel because Israel is creating crimes against humanity. They're violating international law.
Right.
They're keeping people under Israeli military force in concentration camps, violating one person right after the other, their human rights. And we all have international human rights.
Yes, absolutely.
And so one of the people that spoke was an attorney for the Minnesota ACLU, who clearly stated boycotting is a form of free speech.
Free speech, absolutely.
very important form of
Very
free
important.
speech.
Form. Sometimes it's the only one that
And
works.
that they were in dangerous territory if they went ahead and passed this. And there were other people with big credentials that spoke at this very, very eloquently why this should never pass. And it astounds me that our representative here, because he went to Israel, he says, he went on a trip over there. And so he felt that this was a friendly thing to do.
The Israelis' attitude toward the Palestinians is basically fraternal, brotherhood.
Well, he
liberty,
thinks this
equality.
bill is friendly.
Okay. Very, very strange.
Okay, I'm just going to read some comments. This one, first of all, the U.S. churches that have adopted boycott measures aimed at protesting Israel's human rights and international law violations. If you support any of the following U.S. church and religious-based organizations by donating service or money to them, you could be in violation of the certification requirements of HF 400 by providing material support to an organization engaged in boycott activities, making you potentially complicit. The Presbyterian Church USA, Unitarian Universalist, thank you, Association, United Church of Christ, United Methodist Church, Quakers, Mennonite Central Committee, Catholic Conference of Major Superiors of Men, Alliance of Baptists, Muslim American Society, Islamic Circle of North America. Should HF 400 become law, if you sign the anti-boycott certificate and receive a public contract, and if you are a complicit participant in your church's boycott activities, you could be accused of government contract fraud. In addition to religious-based organization, scores of IRC 501c3 organizations also support boycotts aimed at protesting Israel's human rights and international law violations. Do you contribute to any of them? This is one person, what they read, what's on the record down there. The bill isn't about Israeli boycotts. It's about curtailing your speech. In response to Minnesota legislature, is Israel an appropriate issue? Yes, and here's why. The writer seems to suggest that boycotting Israel's settlement activity is inappropriate and should be outlawed because Israel pays Palestinian workers to make more than they make in Palestinian territories. This comes as the Knesset is voting to legalize and increase the confiscation of Palestinian land in the West Bank, and while Palestinian home demolitions continue at a rapid pace. But even if one were to ignore these practices, there is no reason that the Minnesota legislature should be abridging the free speech rights of Minnesotans over such an issue. To make it illegal to criticize a foreign government is not the responsibility nor the proper role of our state legislature. Would legislatures go on to make it illegal to criticize Iran or Russia or France? This bill comes not to protect Israel, but to prevent open dialogue and civil action. Israel has urged greater sanctions against Iran. Why is political discourse over sanctions illegal in the case of Israeli settlements? The legislature should drop this ill-informed bill quickly. That's a Fred Rogers from Northfield. Now we're going to run out of time here pretty quick, but we're going to have a program of Church and State coming up that we're going to film one of the dates in March, and it'll be airing. And Ron Krisha and a lot of what he's done is going to be part of that. This is an article, people can look it up in the meantime, titled Minnesota Legislators Travel a Lot with No Public Transparency, and Ron Krisha and his travels to Turkey is in here. And here's another article tied in with that. Legislators, this is a Star Tribune article. Legislators' trip to Turkey was led by nonprofit with controversial ties. And it's very interesting. We won't have time to go into it. I don't know how many minutes we have left here.
We've got a couple minutes.
I'm just going to read one little, as long as we got a minute here.
This is fascinating, a fascinating
Republicans' doubt of Crown and Representative Ron Krisha of Little Falls, along with DFL Representative Paul Rosenthal of Edina, traveled to Turkey from November 20th to 29 with a delegation from a Chicago-based Niagara Foundation. The organization was founded by followers of Fethullah Gulen, the leader of a Turkish religious movement who has lived in self-imposed exile in the U.S. for 2 decades. The 74-year-old Gulen is a former imam known for a progressive approach to Islam, having advocated dialogue between Muslims and other faith groups, openness to agnosticism and atheism, and for women's rights, education, and a modern economy. A former ally to Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, their relationship has soured in recent years. I was not aware of the issue you raised when I signed up to participate, Rosenthal said. Rosenthal and Kresha responded to inquiries about the trip via email, and Dowd through a spokesperson. Dowd and Kresha also said they didn't know about the controversy surrounding Gulen before the trip. Understanding the earliest days of Western civilization is a passion I possess. Kresha wrote, seeing the caves of Cappadocia, where early Christians hid, the ruins of Ephesus, where St. Paul preached, and the palace of the Ottoman Empire furthered my historical perspective.
This is going to be so interesting.
Yeah, that's a little prelude.
Up.
There's a lot more to read about that, but it's he has ties to terrorism.
Right. I've got to wrap this up. We're running out of time. I'm Teresa Scorset. This is the very erudite Robin Hensel. And this is Can We Talk? And we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for watching.